The disarray of blueprints and half-built contraptions laid across the desk quietly reflected a mind battling constant demands. A heavy sense of exhaustion permeated the space, hinting at anxiety that saps strength and burdens that make the very thought of rising difficult. From their unseen vantage, the mounting weight of endless responsibilities of life, work, and a web-slinging alter ego felt like being buried alive in a quickset concrete tomb. The scattered bills and meager savings jars highlighted the stagnant personal capacity, while the sudden voicemail from Dr. Octavius promised only deeper suffocation for a life already struggling to breathe. Amidst a brief, much-needed sleep, an unblinking phone screen next to them silently broadcasted the weight of a world already in motion. Unread messages from MJ, Aunt May, and Mr. Lee affirmed the grim reality: Spider-Man was truly dead to the world and undoubtedly behind schedule. A blaring crime in progress alert, announcing Level 4 mobilization, shattered the quiet, immediately drawing a hand to the glowing phone screen. With wide, disbelieving eyes, they clutched their head as the location, Fisk Tower, was revealed, overriding all other thoughts. The blaring alarm had shattered their brief peace, leaving only the weight of responsibility pressing down. As they pulled the mask firmly into place, their resolve hardened with the critical intel about SWAT at Fisk Tower and the immediate need to call Captain Watanabe. With a swift tug on their boot, they prepared for the urgent alarm, the mundane burden of a past-due bill swept aside as they moved. The heavy weight of responsibility now overshadowed their quiet, personal struggles. With urgent, past-due notices and a deluge of ignored messages piling up, a weary figure was already soaring through their apartment, receiving Captain Watanabe's update about a crucial mission's delay. Though pressed by personal chaos, they acknowledged the necessity of doing things by the book, their gaze set on the immediate, active duty. With a strained grimace and piercing gaze, the large figure held their battered opponent, expecting a final struggle. But despite the costumed figure's torn suit and weary slump, a defiant no still managed to escape their lips. With a powerful, grimacing yell, the large figure drove their opponent into the ground, a loud KKRK accompanying the splintering impact. The battered figure, their body bending unnaturally, could only manage a sharp, pained ouch as the force hit them. A sudden THWK sent the large figure's head recoiling, their face contorted in a pained grimace as spittle flew. Just moments before, they had been confidently dismissing their opponent on the phone, while the striking figure looked on, having predicted this very outcome with grim resolve. Screaming about years of endured insolence, they slammed their opponent into the shattering earth. Their hand gripped with furious resolve, delivering a powerful T10 that sent debris flying from the explosive impact. The silhouetted figure, seething with anger, clenched a mighty fist as they accused their opponent of audacity. Despite being embedded in the newly shattered earth, the other met the furious gaze, their body language conveying a quip about the floor being cracked by their head. Watching the cuffed figure led into the transport, a hero perched above expressed clear satisfaction at their first day of prison, while another considered it a moment to commemorate. From behind the closing door, the enraged figure glared out, adamantly declaring themselves the true keeper of order, as an associate calmly dismissed the entire event as a minor inconvenience. From the departing transport, an ominous promise of future regret hung in the air, leaving one figure to cast a worried gaze toward the other, questioning the dark implication. With hands in pockets, the second figure casually dismissed the words as typical bluster from a self-obsessed individual. With a look of mild exasperation, the figure on the left made a sarcastic remark about someone's inflated sense of importance. Just then, a flurry of urgent text messages and an incoming call from Dr. Octavius caused the masked figure's eyes to widen in alarm. With a pointed gaze and a hint of mild impatience, one figure noted the persistent ringing, prompting a surprised, "Is it?" from the other. The seemingly innocuous call then revealed itself as an incoming alert from Dr. Octavius, casting a shadow of apprehension. Despite unspoken regrets about needing more diagnostics and a late-night interruption from Spider-Man, a confident smile spread across their face. With eyes closed in self-assurance and an open palm gesturing, they firmly told Parker that they could handle the equipment they themselves invented. A chilling premonition of disaster sent one figure's senses reeling, their wide eyes reflecting horror as energy violently coursed through the other, who cried out in frustration. Rushing to their side, The first figure knelt with remorseful eyes, apologizing as the other, despite their pained cough, stubbornly insisted they were close to their objective, a weak call of their name escaping their lips. With a hand pressed wearily to their face, one figure quietly asked to simply sit and listen to music, even if it was old man music, desiring nothing more than quiet companionship. The other, smiling warmly, agreed to the shared moment but playfully stipulated no more interrogation, understanding that the scanner's call would always take precedence. A light-hearted exchange about school and little girlfriends was suddenly interrupted by a blaring police radio, detailing an armed robbery by a known suspect. The passenger's gaze shifted from playful amusement to wide-eyed urgency upon seeing police lights, eager to get involved, while the driver, with a stern focus, insisted on dropping them off immediately before engaging further. The blaring WEOOWEOOO of a police car suddenly cut through the city, pulling a figure's gaze towards the flashing lights with an immediate jolt of surprise. They watched the scene unfold, murmuring about the friggin' shocker and how cool it all was. Later that night, the television screen broadcast news of a costly battle, property damage tallied in the millions, as a figure intently worked on repairing their damaged gear. They muttered about the need for an upgrade, while another watched with a gentle, reflective smile. Upon discovering a figure still working late, a calm voice remarked they weren't the only one burning the midnight oil. The other, with wide, shocked eyes, stuttered a name, attempting to explain before a wave of realization swept over them, urging them internally to deny everything. With a serious gaze, one figure asked why they hadn't been informed, receiving an explanation that their secrecy was to keep loved ones safe. The first then acknowledged, with a subtle shift in expression, that such a role naturally brought its own risks. The senior figure, wearing a slight smile, commended their dedication with a hand resting gently on their shoulder, then dismissed them to their work. As they turned to resume, a quiet inner thought revealed their relief at having once again diffused a tense situation. From the dimly lit workshop, the figures stood with their back to us, a soft, knowing escaping them as they gazed at an unseen point. They reflected with subtle pride on their protege, Peter Parker, now taking on the task of outfitting Spider-Man. With a focused gaze, one figure enthusiastically covered the chalkboard in complex schematics, marveling at the super science for a superhero they found so immensely fun. The other, equally captivated by the intricate details, silently affirmed, finding the creative process truly tremendous. The workshop plunged into an abrupt darkness, the flurry of enthusiastic ideas now echoing only in the mind's eye. In the profound quiet that followed, a deep weariness settled over them, hinting at a long, intense session finally brought to its close. As consciousness slowly returned from the abrupt darkness, one eye hesitantly opened to find a sticky note plastered across their face. A confused, sleepy murmur escaped them as they tried to make sense of the urgent-looking message to check their email. As the esteemed reputation of Dr. Otto Octavius, a genius and innovator, filled their thoughts, their eyes widened in profound disbelief. With a hand raking through their hair, they grappled with the perplexing realization that such a magnificent mind resorted to unexpectedly simple methods for communicating. With wide, awestruck eyes, they gazed upon the intricate holographic suit designs, a murmur of "Holy heck" escaping their lips as they comprehended the genius behind them, perhaps noting some clever, unexpected detail like sticky notes. Simultaneously, a sharp, automated warning glowed, emphasizing the secrecy of these remarkable schematics. Their eyes, wide with a mix of awe and chagrin, fixated on the elegant design, acknowledging its streamlined simplicity and wondering why they hadn't conceived it themselves. A slight, humbled smile played on their lips as they conceded the old man had truly taught them a lesson. Outside, masked figures prepared for action, while text conveyed anxious concern for an unresponsive contact amid a situation growing weird. Inside Roseman's, an exasperated host railed against deceptive reports and an unwelcome intruder, oblivious to another's urgent plea for help from deep within the building, where they were knee-deep in a dangerous investigation. Their eyes widened with dawning horror as they processed the alarming discovery of Devil's Breath and Mayor Osborn's connection as the crucial details were revealed. Before they could fully grasp the implications, an abrupt voice from the doorway questioned their presence, asserting they couldn't simply enter. A menacing group of masked figures advanced, their voices cold as they insisted they would find the statue. Slumped and visibly terrified, the cornered individual could only manage a trembling hand gesture, reluctantly revealing its location. Crouched low, hidden amongst the relics, their gaze was fixed on the armed figures meticulously searching the space. A chilling instruction echoed, to sweep every room and ensure the place was empty, leaving them trapped and utterly vulnerable. With a fierce gaze, one figure delivered a swift kick, a reflex sharpened by countless dangerous encounters, earning a simple, appreciative exclamation from the masked hero on the ground. As they stood over the incapacitated assailant, a conversation unfolded, touching upon past communications and the current, critical hunt for Devil's Breath, with a hopeful glance acknowledging the masked hero's swift offer of assistance. With a warm greeting, one figure instructed the other to stay safely behind, then returned the sentiment with a slight awkwardness. As a soft smile crossed their face while complimenting the masked figure's new suit, the masked one met their gaze, a subtle pride evident as they asked for an opinion on their new gear. Declaring their resolve with an absolutely certainty, a figure dynamically swung into the fray, webbing their opponents in a blur of motion. The seated individual watched the sudden chaos with a worried gaze, while the armed figure reacted with a visible startlement, caught off guard. As the spider person swung into action, a firm knot resonated with their determined gaze, powerfully flinging the enemy figure away. The ensnared body was violently sent spinning with a cacophony of harsh, rattling sounds. With an arm urgently outstretched, a figure watched in frustration as the monstrous opponent began to slip away, their voice sharp with warning about the escape. The masked spider person and their ally turned their attention to the fleeing threat, realizing the urgency of the moment. The spider person expertly neutralized the threats with a powerful punch and a swift kick, expressing their irritation that stealth hadn't been an option. With wide, relieved eyes, an observer offered sincere thanks, while a confident figure helped them up, stating that saving the day was simply what they did. The masked figures stood grimly among the archive's rows, one confidently reporting the successful retrieval of vital files. Yet, their unsettling triumph was tinged by a bitter voice, lamenting the failure to preserve crucial evidence. The luminous figure, arms poised, listened with an unimpressed gaze as they subtly challenged the difficulty of the reported task. One of the masked subordinates, facing away, countered respectfully that the mission hadn't been easy at all. Facing the white-coated figure, one of the masked individuals reported grimly of their overwhelming encounter with Spider-Man. With a defeated posture, they revealed the necessity of abandoning 3 of their comrades due to the hero's formidable presence. With a cold, calculating gaze, the luminous figure acknowledged their demon's success, stating that individuals were easily replaced. Their eyes then held a chilling conviction as they spoke of secrets as the true power and currency, hinting at the ominous Devil's Breath nearby. With a subtle turn of their head, the white-coated figure urgently instructed the shadowed individuals to hide and remain unseen before making their escape. From the darkness, a voice responded with an immediate, grim reassurance to their boss. Standing amidst the stark storage shelves, the central figure hesitantly voiced their collective refusal. While one maintained a defiant, crossed-arm posture, another's slightly hunched form hinted at the underlying apprehension coloring their united resolve. The suited figure warmly praised the other for their tireless dedication over the years, gently placing a hand on a shoulder to emphasize the deep gratitude felt. Though the praised figure deflected the lavish appreciation with a modest smile, emphasizing the speaker's true vision, a third figure watched the exchange with a thoughtful, almost pensive gaze. The suited figure's gaze held an ethereal glow as they calmly prepared to depart, their words indicating urgent duties elsewhere. Across the room, a warm smile played on one figure's face as they playfully teased about the celebration's treats, before making a more personal, embarrassing comment that caused the other to fluster and protest. Lying sprawled on their apartment floor, a quiet sigh escaped them as they pondered the personal narrative due for Mrs. Ramirez's class. Though typically confident with assignments, their gaze lingered on the smiling faces in the nearby reflection, suggesting a deeper, perhaps challenging, introspection ahead. Lying amidst textbooks and a discarded hoodie, a deep sigh escaped them as they pondered an unusual assignment. A normal essay would have been no problem, but the thought of a weird story about their personal life left them utterly bewildered, their mind echoing a resounding why. Lying on their stomach with headphones on, they meticulously wrote in a notebook, their brows slightly furrowed in deep concentration. A silent voice inside recognized the grand narratives of a super cop dad, the kind of stories people read, but worried their own adventures as an average teenager held no such appeal. Deep in concentration, a pen rested in their mouth as their wide eyes darted to a new message, inquiring what they were doing. Their concise reply, simply "Trig," was instantly met with an entirely unsurprised, yet disgusted, reaction. With wide, alarmed eyes and an open mouth, a figure in the doorway gestured frantically, a sudden, urgent sound escaping them. Oblivious, the other remained absorbed in their phone, having just received a message about a new Spidey and hastily typing a request for a link. Absorbed in the chaotic images on screen, featuring a figure battling a swarm, they listened through their headphones. A familiar update about gank fighting a bunch of bees was met with a resigned, yeah, indicating a strange, yet unalarming, familiarity with the unfolding events. The figure twisted in the air, a web whipping from their wrist to ensnare the advancing swarm of bees. They grimly articulated the threat, explaining this swarm was a sentient hive mind, a truly bizarre foe to contend with. The person wearing headphones intently watched the chaotic battle unfold on their device, as messages called the scenario a nightmare and wondered if the hero might be allergic. To their left, a figure emerged, their wide eyes reflecting shock and concern as they clutched their jacket, an indistinct sound of apprehension escaping them. Caught mid-action, the figure unleashed crackling webs infused with electric energy, ensnaring both the aggressive swarm and their masked opponent. An unseen observer exclaimed in awe at the new, powerful blasts, while another enthusiastically agreed, albeit with a slight pause regarding the suit's distinctive white spider emblem. Caught off guard, their wide eyes widened slightly in surprise as an adult's voice cut through their concentration, urging them to get ready for school and pull themselves away from their device. A sheepish, stuttered apology followed, acknowledging they were completely engrossed. The figure on the left, adjusting their collar with a stern look, lamented about constant lateness caused by trying to do too much at once. With a wide, bright smile, the middle figure playfully countered that multitasking and video games actually made them smarter, while the figure on the right watched their exchange with a soft, knowing gaze, echoing the claim with gentle amusement. With a soft, knowing smile, one offered a gentle chide about gathering tomorrow, watching as the other, eyes wide and hungry amidst a stack of books, urgently requested more food. Already rushing, their mind was a whirlwind of superhero fan theories as they dashed through the city streets. Amidst the urban chaos, the spider-suited figure tried to reassure their companion who, with a worried gaze, voiced concerns about escalating threats. As a phone began to ring insistently with a call from Dr. Octavius, the companion looked on with a mix of concern and slight exasperation, receiving only a brief confirmation that the call was indeed heard. Clinging to the building, the spider-suited figure urgently apologized for their lateness, explaining they had been held up but would arrive soon. However, a solemn voice from the debris-strewn street below abruptly dismissed their efforts, stating there was no longer any reason to come. A pained expression crossed their face as they learned their project's funding was cut, with others reacting in disbelief at the sudden news. Holding the phone tightly, they adamantly declared their unwavering commitment, resolving to continue on, as it was the only thing they knew how to do. The spider-suited figure's wide eyes conveyed their shock as the other expressed regret, stating they could no longer afford to pay them and would have to proceed alone. Raising a hand in earnest protest, they immediately rejected the notion, passionately vowing to make it work and promising not to leave them behind. Noticing the spider-suited figure slumped wearily on the pavement, the one in the dark jacket inquired if everything was all right. Though met with a sarcastic dismissal about superhero problems, a direct question revealed the true burden, as the other, shoulders hunched, quietly conceded things were indeed not okay. As night fell over Fisk's shipyard, a sudden quiet made them pause in anticipation. Crouched low, the spider-suited figure debated bending the rules of entry, even as they reflected on the constant tightrope walk between heroism and legality, a struggle physically emphasized by their chafing suit. From a nearby vehicle, a determined gaze underscored the necessity of adhering to procedure, firmly rejecting any notion of vigilantes trespassing or performing illegal searches. With a gentle smirk, Officer Davis introduced themselves, prompting the spider-suited figure to awkwardly offer their own name. A warmth entered the officer's eyes as they then playfully admitted their son was an enthusiastic, loud fan, causing the spider-suited one to offer an apologetic nod. One figure voiced immediate concern about the extra effort and legality involved in breaking down the imposing metal doors. The other, standing unfazed, simply dismissed their apprehension, implying their course of action was clear. A sudden crash ripped through the silence as a truck burst through the structure, sending a uniformed figure stumbling back with wide, shocked eyes, while the spider-suited figure, mid-swing, urgently called out a warning. As they swung away, the hero cautioned about dangerous demon guys, prompting one figure to pursue while another promised to catch up with a determined gaze. With a look of intense focus, a figure in a patrol car urgently reported the armored truck's departure from Fisk's warehouse. Behind them, two armed individuals stood prepared as loud "braka braka braka" sounds reverberated, hinting at the escalating situation just beyond view. Eyes wide with urgency, the officer vehemently confirmed the presence of black suits, demon masks, and machine guns to the person on the other end of the line. Gripping the steering wheel, their tense expression underscored the perilous chase as they reported Spider-Man was now in hot pursuit. "Be careful, Jefferson," came the warning as a police cruiser spun back with a violent crush through the narrow space. The driver was intent on backing someone up, yet the internal acknowledgement of or trying spoke volumes about the escalating, desperate struggle. The widening of their eyes reflected a burgeoning alarm as they tentatively questioned the ominous turn of events. A moment later, with undeniable horror, a shocked, visceral cry erupted from them, leaving no doubt about the severity of the situation. Clinging precariously amidst the wreckage, the masked figure offered a strained, "Sorry, Captain," for the chaotic events that had just unfolded. Above, a pair of wide, alarmed eyes reflected the intense fallout, witnessing the heavy cost of the moment. With an intense, unwavering gaze fixed on the road ahead, they abruptly ended their conversation, indicating they would have to call back. A powerful VRM erupted from the engine, propelling them forward with urgent speed. The officer turned their head with a slight air of correction, as the masked figure, perched casually on an ambulance, playfully observed the reporter's knack for appearing at exciting incidents, even teasing about their newfound importance. Despite the distraction, the reporter maintained a focused gaze, professionally relaying news of an injured officer's expected recovery. An inquiry about them saving Spider-Man's life was met with a modest, dismissive turn of their head. The masked figure, holding an .4 bag, watched with wide, curious eyes as the first continued, insisting on the overwhelming number of eyewitnesses. With an earnest, persistent gaze and an outstretched hand, one figure identified themselves as a reporter, confirming a past action. But the officer, turning away, raised a firm, dismissive hand, stating plainly they were a police officer, not a headline, and had no further comment. The direct, undeniable claim about an inevitable story caused their gaze to widen, a hint of alarm in their slightly parted lips. They seemed to grasp the implication. Wouldn't it be better to ensure the truth was told, rather than let others fabricate a version of events? With a gentle, almost amused smile, the figure in blue suggested their companion argued like a child, pressing them about their true motivations. The masked individual, weary but steady, responded with a downcast gaze that they simply listened, leading to a quiet invitation to board. With an exasperated yet knowing smile and widespread arms, one figure playfully confronted the other, demanding to know why they'd been kept in the dark. The questioned figure, appearing surprised, sought clarification before hearing about their father's unexpected appearance on the news alongside Spider-Man. A hand tightened on the phone as it displayed harrowing eyewitness footage of an officer risking their life to save Spider-Man, watching the chaotic scene unfold, a disbelieving "what?" escaped them. A figure with a direct, stern gaze questioned their intent to join the exam, eliciting a hesitant, slightly flustered reply. With a clear, impatient directive to take their seat and avoid a zero, the students' hands clasped together, their posture conveying a quiet discomfort. With a pen idly poised, their wide, searching eyes expressed a sudden, dazed return to the present. They quietly wondered if their mind had slipped into an unremembered autopilot, having missed the last few minutes entirely. The rhythmic TK-TK of a pen underscored a casual confidence as the test-taker thought of the exam's surprising ease, perhaps overcompensating for an earlier day's state. Meeting an older figure's worried, seriously, who admitted their mind was entirely elsewhere, they presented a perfectly aced paper with a direct gaze, offering a reassuring, "Don't worry." A sudden, fiery explosion tore through the city streets, an impossible sight. Their hands, trembling slightly, desperately held a phone, its screen capturing a blurry, vivid image of the unfolding chaos. Bursting from the hospital, one figure looked back with bewildered energy, announcing that their interview had gone unexpectedly viral. Nearby, another figure slowly shuffled out with a walker, their steady gaze seemingly accustomed to the world's chaotic pace. A newcomer burst into the hospital room, their gaze filled with angry disbelief as they confronted another about being sent away while a loved one was hospitalized. As the standing figure began to explain how public words and footage had painted a heroic narrative, the patient in the bed merely offered a knowing, slightly amused smile about social media's reach. As one figure in a hospital gown held another in a tight embrace, they gently tried to explain the situation, before conceding that the younger individual was right to be upset about finding out about their injury in such an indirect way. Meanwhile, a third figure watched them with a soft, empathetic smile, offering a tender, calming word to the distressed one. With a soft, knowing gaze back into the room, they announced they would make a quick call, stepping out to grant the others privacy. Their quiet departure offered a much-needed moment for the raw emotions within. The younger figure began to excitedly recount a dramatic event, but their gaze softened with surprise as the other, in a hospital gown, admitted their overwhelming worry had made them oblivious to anything else. With a gentle expression, the recovering figure then offered a calming reassurance that they were, in fact, doing just fine. As the incredible truth began to unfold, their eyes widened in profound disbelief. A stunned exclamation caught in their throat, barely able to voice "You've gotta be." Their gaze fixated on the stark eviction notice, shoulders slumping under the weight of profound disbelief. A quiet whisper escaped them, wondering if this was truly happening, as a sudden, sharp succession of beeps pierced the stunned silence. A deep sigh escaped them as they stared at the cracked phone screen, where a familiar face smiled brightly amidst the grim backdrop of an eviction notice. From their side, a series of urgent beeps pulsed, demanding attention in the face of mounting despair. As their worried gaze drifted upwards, they attempted to dismiss the caller's concern, insisting nothing was wrong, just exhaustion. Yet, the person on the other end of the line clearly heard the unspoken distress in their voice. Noticing the excited urgency in the caller's voice, they prompted them to share their news. As the caller revealed the interview from last night had gone explosively viral, their jaw dropped and a hand flew up, expressing utter disbelief at the incredible speed of events. Absorbing the astonishing news of a mayoral event celebrating Jefferson, a surprised wow escaped them. With a hint of nervousness, they softly asked for company, receiving an immediate and heartfelt assurance that the other wouldn't miss it for anything in the world. A deafening KTOM ripped through the air as a brilliant blue explosion erupted, violently throwing figures across the street. With wide, horrified eyes and an open mouth, they stared upwards, uttering an inaudible gasp of pure shock amidst the sudden, devastating chaos. Violently thrown by the blast, their head arched back as eyes squeezed shut against the sudden chaos. A desperate, raw cry of "Dad" escaped their lips, reverberating with profound shock and pain amidst the debris. Their eyes wide with a dawning, difficult realization, the one on the right offered a hesitant agreement that quickly turned to soft denial. With sweat tracing their temple, the other held their gaze, stating the stark truth. The problem was that it simply wasn't possible. With a downcast gaze, they offered a cynical thought about how foolish it was for anyone to wish their dull life was more like a comic book, a sentiment met with a hollow, overwhelmed stare from the figure beside them. Both bore the weight of a harsh reality, their expressions etched with a weary resignation. Strolling through the rain-soaked graveyard, their distant gaze seemed to mourn the normalcy they had once cherished as a teenager. With shoulders slightly slumped, they internally acknowledged their reluctance for any grand, origin story, yet understood it was now undeniably upon them. Standing amidst the rain-soaked gravestones, their distant gaze carried a profound weight as the downpour continued. Despite the overwhelming numbness of their sadness, a particular familiar voice of a parent's advice now echoed clearest within their thoughts. Amidst the falling rain in the graveyard, their eyes, heavy with sorrow, confronted the harsh reality that not all bad things can be prevented. Despite feeling there was nothing super about it, their gaze firmed, affirming that a hero, above all else, never gives up. Inside Mary Jane Watson's apartment, their gaze settled on familiar objects as they quietly reflected on a lifelong love for mysteries and a childhood wish to be a detective. They pondered how investigative journalism, focused on making connections and solving riddles, had become a close, albeit gunplay-free, path to putting those very pieces together. Their fingers moved steadily across the keyboard, eyes fixed on the puzzle on the screen, finding a momentary peace in a task that evoked memories of shared times. It was a deliberate effort to divert their mind, to escape the crushing anxiety about the dangers threatening their beloved. Their fingers gently held the screen, where an image of a smiling Peter offered a momentary reprieve from the month-long, intense investigation into the City Hall bombing and the threats of Mr. Negative. Despite the gravity of their shared pursuit, a soft smile touched their lips, acknowledging the unexpected joy of spending so much time together once more. With a gentle, thoughtful smile, their eyes seemed to drift upwards as they reflected on the charming routine of nightly visits and shared snacks. They considered how this connection now felt distinctly different, evolving beyond mere fun into something akin to a comfortable partnership. The brief, gentle smile vanished as their gaze lifted from the now darkened screen, a soft, weary sigh escaping them. It was a sound of resignation, as if the comforting image had given way to an unwelcome reality they now faced with wide, contemplating eyes. The screen pulsed with a chaotic vision, as confused and shocked faces in the distant crowd seemed to question, "Who are you?" Closer to the foreground, with wide, panicked eyes, a figure desperately pleaded for them to wait. Their hands tightened around the screen, gaze fixated on the chaotic image as it resolved into a familiar, unsettling face. A silent, disbelieving question formed in their mind. Martin Lee. Stunned, their gaze fixed on the baffling detail that a key figure ran a homeless shelter, expressing that it simply didn't make sense. Amidst their bewilderment, a detached message glowed, declaring that's precisely how puzzles operate. Staring intently at the screen, their eyes widened with a dawning realization, a soft gasp escaping their lips. They mused about how persistent focus reveals tiny clues, which then connect, one after another, to unravel a larger picture. Their wide eyes, full of astonished disbelief, darted forward as a crucial, unbelievable realization settled upon them. Until eventually, the culmination of events made it clear that this was something truly astounding, something they knew someone like Peter would struggle to believe. Entering the bustling shelter, Miles offered a belated apology, earning a warm welcome and relief that they'd chosen practical help over further self-reflection. With an earnest, slightly weary smile, Miles expressed a desire to move past mere discussion, prompting the listener, whose gaze was understanding, to ask what active role they could play. As they stepped into the bustling kitchen, one of the newcomers presented the other, offering their help. The person already at work on the counter looked up with a warm, welcoming smile, playfully teasing about their culinary skills, which the newcomer silently and confidently defended. With a friendly gesture and a reassuring smile, one individual offered a casual invitation to talk, promising support without pressure. In the bustling kitchen, another figure greeted a newcomer with warmth and playful teasing about cooking abilities, though the newcomer still appeared reserved. Later, placing a gentle hand on their shoulder, the welcoming figure spoke with a soft gaze of shared grief and the long, slow journey towards healing, knowing it would ease with time. Leaning against the doorframe, one individual called out a greeting before abruptly delivering an unbelievable truth. A familiar, respected figure was actually a notorious one. A sharp, disbelieving "what?" was the immediate, stunned reply to this shocking revelation. Explaining to Mary Jane on the phone that they were going through City Hall photos, their eyes widened as a critical discovery came into focus on the laptop screen. A look of surprise crossed their face as they realized that he was there, alongside the demons, in one of their own shots. Despite attempts to write off the disturbing photos as a simple misunderstanding, one individual's determined gaze as they spoke of deep financial digging into shell companies caused the other's expression to shift to one of stark disbelief. The urgency mounted, with the other insisting they had solid proof, leaving the brown-haired individual utterly shocked by the unfolding revelation. With chilling efficiency, masked operatives gathered weapons and planned their discreet exit, avoiding any do-gooders. From above, a hidden figure observed them, their eyes widening at the grim discovery as one operative cynically remarked on a homeless shelter being a truly sick front. The formidable weapons lay nestled within the tactical bag, a stark contrast to the casual words that spoke of a boss who had effortlessly snowed the city with simple acts of kindness. This chilling juxtaposition revealed the calculated deception at play, where benevolence was merely a veil for true power. With wide, anxious eyes, they stared into the darkness, their face illuminated by the desperate glow of a phone held close. They called out for Peter, then a hesitant hello, but only silence answered their urgent pleas. With a casual smile, the person in the kitchen recounted finding a file revealing a deep, long-standing obsession with Mayor Osborne, noting that their own presence had gone completely unnoticed. The other, deeply engrossed in the decade-old documents, met the news with wide, concerned eyes, murmuring about unsettling references to Devil's Breath and their determination to uncover more. With a confident air, the one in the kitchen declared their new chicken curry specialty almost perfected. Across the counter, the other turned with wide, appreciative eyes, remarking how amazing the aroma smelled. With a teasing glint in their eyes, a small smile graced their lips as they looked at the other. They playfully questioned if this new specialty would be as perfect as the famously blackened dumplings from earlier. A partner of Spider-Man emerged from the ominous Oscorp building, their focused gaze hinting at a resolve deeper than simply waiting idly. With purposeful steps, they descended into the night, undoubtedly anticipating the crazy super stuff that awaited them outside. Emerging from Oscorp, a masked figure frantically urged their companions to hurry, knowing their momentary lead against Spider-Man wouldn't last. On the far left, another looked back with a tense, worried gaze, perhaps anticipating immediate danger from behind. The masked figure on the left reported their departure, a hint of satisfaction in their posture as they recounted the messy but successful mission. With their gaze fixed forward, they confidently declared their discovery of where Osborne was concealing the deadly Devil's Breath as their companions absorbed the grave news. With a focused expression, they spoke into their phone about security goons from Sable International making their way to Central Park. As they listened, new messages flashed on their screen from MJ, reporting they were following a hot lead and signing off with a casual partner, hinting at shared responsibilities. The figure in the suit offered a dismissive reply, claiming ignorance about the escaped thieves and subtly hinting at the other's supposed lack of success. With an unyielding gaze, the masked figure directly challenged them, asserting with quiet conviction that the break-in was no random act, and they both knew it. With an exasperated gesture, the masked figure voiced their frustration that the crack security team had targeted them instead of the true culprits. Gaze firm and guns drawn, another figure sharply clarified the guards' actions, stating they saw a masked individual breaking in. As pulsating red energy held the hero in agony on the ground, the suited figure smoothly introduced them to Silver Sablanova, head of Sable International. With a stern gaze and hand near her weapon, Sablanova challenged the expectations placed on her men, while the hero could only manage a pained, weak greeting. Under the watchful glow of floodlights, the Sable International base camp in Central Park stood vigilant against the night. Its modular structure suggested a hidden hub of critical operations, potentially unaware of the escalating threats unfolding nearby. Amidst the flickering lights of the camp, the red-haired figure expressed their exasperation with the frequent blackouts, soon overhearing a distraught scientist lamenting their involvement with a dangerous project and regretting not destroying Devil's Breath. With a soft smile, they stepped forward, addressing the scientist directly, eliciting a look of utter shock and alarm. With a wide, eager smile, the red-haired figure shared a sudden observation, their gaze fixed on the other. Wide-eyed behind their spectacles and mouth slightly agape, the listeners seemed momentarily stunned by the unexpected words. With a stern gaze, the figure aimed their weapon, demanding to know if Lee had sent the other. The red-haired figure, hands raised defensively, vehemently denied any such allegiance, asserting they weren't with the demons or Sable, their expression betraying a deep concern for what Lee's true intentions might be. With a weapon still held, one figure listened intently as the other, eyes earnest, clarified their shared purpose in seeking answers about Devil's Breath. The scientist, their gaze growing heavy with dread, then unveiled the terrifying reality of the bioweapon, a genetic modification designed to cure, yet becoming a highly contagious nightmare that consumed its victims from within. Mid-leap, one figure vented their exasperation into a message, recalling a recent interrogation before the call concluded with a frustrated beep. Their focus then sharpened on the figure below, a purse snatcher still clutching a knife, now the target for their pent-up anger. Mid-swing, the determined figure concluded their message, asking to be called back upon receipt. With fierce resolve, they then declared their urgent pursuit of Lee, their gaze fixed forward as a discarded, hooded figure lay motionless in the grass below. The weight of a critical lead pressed on them as widespread danger consumed the city, prompting a figure to make a tense call. With a determined gaze, they demanded to speak to Mayor Osborne, even as a masked assailant violently subdued an officer nearby, before issuing a precise, urgent ultimatum to the mayor. A determined expression hardened their features as they delivered a final, grave warning over the phone, the dire consequence of inaction clear in their voice. Their gaze briefly swept over the fearful figures huddled on the ground, held captive by armed guards, a grim reminder of what was at stake. With an unwavering gaze, they absorbed the information displayed before them, the gravity of the city's peril reflecting in their stern expression. Poised and resolute before the illuminated console, their determined resolve remained unyielding despite the widespread danger that pressed in. From above, a silent warning about a critical communication failure from a certain amazing friend seemed to emanate from the device in hand. Below, a confident figure grandly announced it was a lucky day for the assembled crowd to meet the mayor, but one onlooker's wide, worried eyes clearly understood this partnership could be very short-lived. A heavy sadness clouded their eyes as they contemplated a cruel truth. In 10 months, they would lose the ability to hold an apple, let alone the precise grip for a soldering iron. This impending personal loss, reflected in their somber gaze, added another layer of quiet despair to the already dire situation. With their mind growing sharper and more focused each day, they leaned forward in their chair, hand outstretched towards the glowing monitors. Yet, a heavy sorrow weighed on them, acknowledging the breakneck speed at which their body deteriorated and fearing they would soon be nothing but a useless, limp rag doll. With their hands poised over the keyboard, they regarded the critical error notifications across the screens, seemingly accepting that their physical form could give out. They reflected with a subtle melancholy that their true achievements had never depended on this outer shell, which merely housed their greater essence. Their hand pressed a key with decisive finality, accepting that the old, tired form must be discarded. Yet, their intense focus on the glowing screens affirmed a fierce resolve that their mind, at least, would persevere. A quiet resolve settled upon their features, their gaze, framed by glasses, fixed forward with a subtle smile. They knew that after discarding the old, it was time to build anew. A confident smile broadened across their face, their gaze bright with satisfaction behind their glasses, as they spoke of clever design improvements. They casually adjusted their jacket, radiating an assuredness in their inventive solution. As their head turned, a soft but decisive click resonated, the sound of their preparations finally locking into place. With their gaze sharpening behind their glasses, a quiet determination settled in, anticipating the next step. A broad, satisfied smile lit their face, their gaze bright as the glowing mechanisms hummed to life around them. With a palpable sense of triumph, they inwardly affirmed their genius, knowing their meticulous preparations were finally complete. With a purposeful stride, their foot engaged the newly activated mechanisms. A powerful KC Chen and K resonated as armored limbs landed, followed by another decisive C Chen and K, each step sparking with raw, eager energy. A broad, delighted smile stretched across their face as the figure floated effortlessly, their mechanical arms extending with a natural grace that felt so smooth, so natural as if they were born with them. Their triumphant gaze then settled on a monitor, displaying a newscaster reporting a hostage situation at Grand Central Terminal. With a serious, direct gaze, the news anchor conveyed urgent reports of masked gunmen and a Spider-Man sighting. The situation was grim, as they added that the number of trapped individuals was unknown, with police advising everyone to steer clear of the building. With wide, panicked eyes fixed on the tangled wires, they relayed the colors into their phone, privately grappling with the overwhelming realization they were defusing a bomb. A voice on the other end, offering a technical clarification about it being a biochemical weapon, was met with a sharp, familiar interjection before a hasty apology. With focused attention, they carefully described the device's wiring, noting blue connected to a battery, yellow to a fan, and red strangely marked with an exclamation point. A voice on the other end responded with immediate relief, confirming that simply unplugging the wires would finally mean they were home free. Their wide, panicked eyes fixed on the device, they reacted with an urgent wait. No, as the voice on the other end of the phone mentioned unplugging the wires. Their hand hovered, ready to intervene, a sudden desperation etched across their face. Their eyes wide with sudden alarm, they clutched the device tighter as a voice urgently warned about the specific unplugging order needed to avoid devil's breath dispersal. A stunned "what?" was their immediate, shaken response. With the device pressed to their ear, they offered a swift apology, a realization dawning on them that crucial information should have been conveyed earlier. A slight exasperation crossed their face as they tried to de-escalate the situation, reassuring the other person with a repeated "okay, okay, okay." Demanding to be walked through the vital task, the white-clad figure delivered a focused punch even as Spider-Man admitted their attention was somewhat divided. Moments later, a sharp impact caused the white figure to recoil, yet Spider-Man, unfazed, continued to calmly issue precise, urgent instructions for the next steps. The white-clad figure delivered a focused punch, their glowing eyes fixed on the striking hand, causing the red and blue figure to recoil with a sharp "ow." Despite questioning, "Are you sure?" they quickly followed up with a resigned, "Pretty sure," acknowledging the deliberate, if painful, instruction. Upon hearing the task was done, their eyes were wide with startled intensity, clutching a small device tightly. Their gaze remained fixed, mouth slightly agape, as they gravely instructed, "Tell me if anything happens." With wide, shocked eyes, they gripped the device tightly as the timer on it abruptly dropped to 30 seconds. This sudden, ominous change was instantly recognized as a collapsing circuit, drawing a desperate "damn it" from their lips. As the device unleashed a devastating, electrifying blast, one figure screamed in pure agony, engulfed in the sudden, blinding energy. The other could only watch, helplessly recoiling as the intense surge left them collapsed and utterly still on the ground. With a hand raised to their masked face, the figure in red announced their return, their gaze directed towards the other, a weariness underlying their words. The other could only respond with a stunned, questioning look, their mind grappling with the chaos that had just unfolded. Responding to the anxious question of whether it had worked, their gaze was fixed intently as they breathed a soft "yeah." A heavy sigh of relief then escaped them, confirming success as they leaned over the device, eyes still wide with the lingering tension of the moments before. Observing the fast-moving figure in the distance, a query was posed about their progress. With a dynamic swing, the other relayed a partial success, though their movements remained urgent as they hinted at a still-present, careening danger. With a desperate urgency, the figure launched glowing tendrils, their body language taut as they mentally urged physics to cooperate, hoping to bridge the distance. Their gaze, intently fixed on the fast-moving train, held a cautious hope, knowing that only time would tell if their risky maneuver would pay off. With a desperate plea to the very laws of physics, the figure propelled themselves through the inverted space, their body taut with intense effort. Their extended arm and glowing tendrils strained, gaze fixed on the blurring path below, embodying a frantic resolve. With their bodies stretched taut and an urgent plea escaping their lips, the figure desperately deployed their tendrils to halt the runaway train. As a metallic shriek echoed through the confined tunnel, they pulled with all their might, their gaze fixed on the distressed vehicle's broken windows and sparking undercarriage. The chaos of a subway car tearing through a building left one figure, with an exasperated look, questioning the practicality of containing threats without such widespread destruction. Their companion, surveying the wreckage with a more pragmatic, perhaps weary gaze, mused aloud about the immense financial costs that always follow heroic endeavors. A knowing smirk played on their lips as they looked towards the masked figure, commenting on the rare quiet their phone was experiencing. The masked figure, their gaze steady, acknowledged the truth in that observation, a slight tilt of their head suggesting a moment of shared, subdued relief. The persistent boop-ba-doop-boop-boop of a call pierced the quiet, immediately drawing one figure's eyes down to their device as Peter calling lit up the screen. Simultaneously, in a shadowy corner, another figure, armored, continued their work with focused intensity, their attention fully absorbed by the console before them. Their gaze was fixed, a flicker of something unreadable in their wide eyes as the broadcast announced the crisis's end and the capture of Mr. Negative. A slight furrow in their brow hinted at deeper concerns, even as the report prepared to take them live to Mayor Osborn's address. With resolute posture, their gaze fixed on the intricate display, they reaffirmed their unwavering commitment. When a promise was made to the city, it would be kept. They inwardly dismissed the broadcast speaker as nothing more than a spin-doctoring clown. As their gaze, fixed with resolute intensity, listened to a broadcast announcing a pivotal decision, a confident voice claimed unprecedented safety. With a disgusted snarl, they dismissed the words as shallow credit-taking, utterly shattering the monitor in a furious denial of the blatant lie. Perched atop a column, one figure listened to a distant voicemail, their posture heavy with unspoken longing. Elsewhere, another, hanging upside down, grappled with a tense text exchange, their earnest attempts to clarify leading only to the difficult admission that perhaps it should be over. An urgent alert for an overturned vehicle flared into view, starkly contrasted by the quiet sorrow of messages exchanged. One expressed a need for time and distance to figure things out, a sentiment understood and quietly reciprocated by the other, who also had urgent work calling. The costumed figure, surveying the smoking wreckage with an urgent gaze, leaned in to ask about the well-being of those trapped inside. With a weary but determined look, the person within confirmed their survival, revealing the attackers only sought the Devil's Breath cargo they were transporting back to Sable International. With a concerned gaze, the costumed figure held the other's hand, confirming what they had feared amidst the destruction. They urgently pressed for answers, demanding to know who was responsible for the chaos. With a bewildered gaze, the elder figure recounted the terrifying sight of a bald individual with snake arms flipping their truck, a detail that prompted a questioning snake arms from the costumed figure. The elder tried to clarify, describing the assailant's limbs as insect-like, while their younger companion remained silently distressed, eyes cast downwards. With a focused posture, the costumed figure turned their gaze towards the other, correcting them by stating they were technically an arachnid. Their slightly extended hand seemed to underscore this precise distinction, perhaps to clarify their own connection to the strange events unfolding. High above the city streets where distant chaos billowed, the costumed figure moved with urgent purpose, reaching out with a plea for aid. They regretfully acknowledged the inconvenient timing, but their desperate need for help was paramount. With a worried gaze, the costumed figure sent an urgent message, expressing deep concern that something serious was happening with Dr. Octavius. They pleaded for a meeting at the lab as soon as the recipient received the communication. A figure sighed, contemplating past desires to be a partner, as an incoming message confirmed an imminent arrival. With a direct gaze, the red-haired individual affirmed their commitment, asking what the urgent matter was, while from a nearby doorway, another peeked out, offering a grateful thanks. With a heavy gaze fixed downward, one figure grappled with the undeniable damage caused by technology they helped create, finding it difficult to reconcile with the brilliant and kind person they admired. Seeing them spiral into self-reflection, the other gently urged them to speak to them directly. With a serious gaze, one figure delivered a disturbing theory. Their prosthesis tech may have been used by the doc to attack a truck and steal the Devil's Breath. The other recoiled in utter shock, demanding clarification, yet the first maintained it was the only conclusion that made any sense. Kneeling amidst scattered blueprints, one figure expressed utter bewilderment, questioning the very motives behind recent events. Another, gesturing openly, offered a startling explanation about controlled arms and an exclusive implant, while a third stood with a disbelieving gaze, unable to reconcile the logic. A figure stood before the chalk-filled board, their gaze fixed on the intricate designs as they pondered why someone would misuse their life's groundbreaking work. With a determined tilt of their head, they declared that finding those answers was now paramount. From their position at the cluttered desk, the seated figure hesitantly explained an accidental keyboard bump, their words trailing off. The other, standing before the complex board, had their gaze fixed between the cryptic designs and the speaker, a look of growing bewilderment demanding an explanation. The seated figure's gaze was fixed on the intricate brain scans, their presence a somber confirmation as the other hesitantly broke a confidence. They revealed Otto's devastating secret, a degenerative neurological disorder rapidly stealing motor function, explaining their desperate investment in advanced prosthetics. Their gaze gravely fixed on the complex brain scans, one figure explained that the damage wasn't merely motor-related, but deeply threatened to alter the individual's entire personality. As the other listened with a worried frown, emphasizing how inhibitions and impulse control were at risk, they asserted the desperate need to find him, impatiently dismissing a tangential concern about cybernetic arms. The dire pronouncement that Octavius possessed the devil's breath settled over the sprawling metropolis. Unaware of the chilling threat, the city pulsed with vibrant lights and indifferent crowds, its ordinary rhythm continuing beneath the ominous declaration. A burning gaze reflected years of perceived deception, all these lies finally laid bare. With a grim, determined expression, they declared it's over as powerful mechanical arms crackled with energy, poised to expose their rival's true nature. High above the sprawling city, their determined gaze swept over the brightly lit expanse. As a mechanical arm clutched the glowing vial, a fierce resolve settled upon them, believing the time had come to reveal the truth to all. Their burning gaze, reflecting years of perceived deception, locked onto the figure standing calmly on the illuminated facade. With a flash of fierce determination, mechanical tendrils arced forward, ready to strike, as the other met their advance with an unervingly steady stare. Their burning gaze culminating in a thunderous clash, the colossal figures met with an earth-shattering impact. A searing light erupted from the point of collision, a furious burst reflecting the raw power unleashed. With a searing whoosh, the colossal clash ignited, a blinding burst of energy erupting between their straining forms. Through the furious glow, their unwavering gazes remained locked, each pushing with grim determination against the force of the other. Their gazes fixed skyward, the onlookers watched the furious red glow engulf the towering skyscraper. High above, a solitary figure seemed to cling to the building, a silent testament to the raw power that had just erupted. A chorus of shocked gasps and uneasy exclamations rose from the onlookers, their faces distorted with a mix of disgust and disbelief at the sight unfolding. Against the fiery glow, a masked figure with intensely burning eyes and formidable mechanical limbs stared back, their unyielding posture daring any to refute or spin the undeniable truth of the situation. Suspended precariously amidst falling debris, the figure in red and blue urgently relayed critical intelligence, asking their contact about the unfolding disaster at Rikers. The grave response confirmed a coordinated attack, prisoners mere minutes from full escape, prompting a weary, sarcastic sigh from the masked hero as they processed the dire scale of the threat. With wide, worried eyes and a desperate expression, an operator urgently relayed that the entire raft population, including formidable adversaries, had escaped, confirming things had indeed worsened. Suspended precariously amidst the chaos, the figure in red and blue, having just expressed concern over another unfolding crisis, questioned if they truly had a choice but to rely on uncertain allies in the face of such overwhelming danger. Rhino's menacing gaze promised an ominous future soon, as the figure in red and blue reeled from a powerful impact, hearing a disembodied voice remember a command to keep them alive as they crashed down. Lying amidst debris, they expressed weary frustration over a long-held secret just before another assailant delivered a sharp, painful blow. With a sarcastic quip about dropping in more often, the figure in red and blue swung into the chaos, their gaze determined amidst the downpour. A forceful wham echoed as they connected, sending the dark, hulking opponent reeling from the sudden impact. The figure in red and blue knelt, momentarily pinned amidst a circle of foes who now seemed to act with an unexpected, almost amused, cohesion. With a wry smile, one among them mused aloud about the surprising effectiveness, and even a strange sort of fun, they found in their coordinated efforts against the hero. Under the heavy rain, the goggled figure's intense gaze bore into the other, their raised fingers silently warning them that they weren't acting like themselves. With a stern expression, they delivered a definitive, final warning to cease their actions, as the suited figure's white lens stared back. The masked figure, defiant on the ledge, extended a mechanical arm, its blast sending the other reeling backward as they vehemently declared, "Stay out of our way." Thrown amidst the rain and debris, the falling figure's body twisted, conveying a sudden, desperate struggle against an overwhelming force. The goggled figure, standing tall amidst the downpour, fixed their intense gaze on the dark, obedient figures gathered before them. A chilling resolve settled on their face as they proclaimed the city's impending fall, ready to bring it to its knees with a sinister, powerful intent. The masked figure, half submerged in the swirling, rain-lashed waters, pushed forward with a determined, low stance. Their focused gaze sharpened as an urgent voice from the unseen confirmed their target was close by. Standing resilient amidst the heavy downpour, a figure addressed the partially submerged form, their gaze firm. While they acknowledged the grave situation, their voice offered a crucial piece of news, confirming the survival of another, illuminated by a blinding glow. With a deep sigh, a masked figure leaned heavily against the cold metal of the bed frame, their head bowed in weary resignation as the news report detailed the mayor's accusations. Hearing the blatant deflection of blame, especially after the true origins of the crisis were revealed, drew a quiet, indignant, just monstrous from them. The crowd pressed against the barricade, their faces contorted with rage and desperation as they demanded answers regarding the closed hospitals amidst the outbreak. Facing their emotional outburst, the line of armored figures remained unyielding, instructing them to calm down and step away, even as whispers of Oscorp's unproven anti-serum only fueled further distrust. Even amongst the armed figures guarding the medical center, confusion brewed regarding the widespread closures, while the restless crowd pressed forward. A distinct sense of dread settled on their line, realizing they were on the verge of being gravely outnumbered, yet the desperate throng still questioned the true nature of their opposition. The crowd, composed of unarmed doctors, patients, and parents with sick children, pressed desperately against the barricade, their masked faces pleading for access. Despite their evident vulnerability, the chilling suggestion was made from the other side that a small show of force might still be in order. As one armored figure adjusted their weapon, a soft pink glow indicating a change to non-lethal settings, they calmly conveyed the order to set to stun. Their comrades, turning with expressions of surprise, exchanged disbelieving glances, one asking what, while another questioned the seriousness of such a command. The armored figure held their weapon steadily, their obscured gaze reflecting an unyielding adherence to duty as if to declare that orders are orders. They affirmed the command to tase anyone who dared cross the line, their posture resolute against the pressing crowd. With an abrupt slash and a decisive shift in their posture, the armored figure declared a new plan, their stance reflecting a sudden, urgent resolve. A powerful THWMP followed, as their weapon was brought to bear with unexpected force, signaling a swift change in strategy. A figure swung into view with playful determination, their body a blur of motion against the city skyline. With a confident twist, they firmly called out to the armored troublemakers, insisting they leave the innocent citizens alone. Swinging in with playful determination, the figure in red and blue declared a swift lesson for their opponents, their gaze sharp and confident. Landing gracefully, they pressed a foot to a vanquished foe, suggesting it was time to reevaluate their life choices, as another lay defeated nearby. The armored figure lifted their hands, a pleading gesture as they acknowledged the grim situation and sought common ground based on a sense of right and wrong. The figure in red and blue turned their head, their gaze unwavering as they weighed the unexpected appeal. As they held their camera steady, focused on the unfolding chaos, a sudden, blinding energy burst violently beside them. Their body tensed, and a sharp, surprised whisper escaped their lips, recognizing the grave reality of a shot. The violent KRR-SSH shattered the calm, drawing a pained "No" from their lips as their face contorted in agony. Elsewhere, a figure snapped into a defensive stance, weapon raised, their gaze fixed on the doorway as they sharply questioned, "Who's there?" Crouching low amidst the rubble, their gaze was sharp with caution as they demanded the unseen intruder reveal themselves. The silence stretched, prompting a hushed whisper, wondering if the elusive presence was even still there. With eyes blazing with a fierce, unwavering resolve, they uttered a chilling promise. The unseen intruder would not want them to come searching. The small, dark creature perched on their shoulder seemed to pulse with their unspoken threat. With a worried gaze and furrowed brow, they urgently demanded to know how fast the webslinger could reach Osborne's penthouse, revealing their own preemptive action towards the location. High above the city, the webslinger, already mid-swing and focused, swiftly reassured them of their precise location and speed, even as the caller's tone grew more frantic. With wide, frantic eyes, they began to question, only to cut themselves off as desperation seized them. Clutching the phone, their voice strained with urgency, pleading for someone to arrive in just 20 minutes. Moving with urgent speed, they responded to the desperate plea, their masked gaze sharp and directed forward. A question of what dire situation had unfolded quickly followed their swift ascent. With their grip tight on the phone, a frantic plea tore from their wide-open mouth. The words, "Just hurry, okay?" echoed the raw desperation that had seized them. A casual post-rescue exchange, where one expressed gratitude mixed with exasperation and another pondered the enduring thrill of their unique circle, was abruptly cut short. With a sudden, pained cry and an unexpected surge of energy, one companion clutched their hand, immediately drawing the worried attention of the other, who questioned what had happened. With a deep gaze, they carefully observed the tiny form resting in their open palm. Though they murmured that nothing was wrong and they were all right, a faint worry creased their brow as they contemplated the fragile being. Standing with a subtly defensive posture, one figure watched as another confidently advanced, their gaze fixed on something low. They casually brushed off the situation as merely a bug bite, their nonchalance contrasting with the other's lingering unease. A sudden, brilliant burst of power erupted, overwhelming all within its immediate vicinity. The sheer force of the luminous energy seemed to rip through the air, demanding an immediate reaction. The overwhelming power ripped through the space, shattering it into fragmented shards of light and shadow. A chilling echo resonated through the swirling remnants, leaving an ominous impression of vast, chained force. Amidst the stark reality of a makeshift medical bay, where a grim question about a final act subtly hangs in the air, a concerned individual offers quiet comfort to another, whose worried gaze suggests a deepening struggle. Their distress soon becomes undeniable as they are racked with a violent, persistent cough, eyes tightly closed and face contorted in an overwhelming fight for breath. A sudden cough quickly turned into a distressed fall, shattering the quiet of the medical bay as a medical stand crashed to the floor. "May!" cried out an individual, their eyes wide with alarm as they rushed forward, while another figure sprinted to their side amidst the concerned gazes of onlookers. Bursting into the FESD shelter, the two supporting figures urgently carried the severely injured hero between them, their faces reflecting deep alarm. One pleaded desperately for help, emphasizing the critical state of Spider-Man, while the other cleared the way with a firm, outstretched arm. Rushing into the medical bay, two figures carefully supported an injured individual. As they were urged to bring them towards a bed, another person already inside watched with wide, worried eyes, clutching their supplies. With their gaze fixed on the injured figure, the person in blue urgently demanded to speak with a head doctor, their worry deepening at the other's shocked admission that no medical staff were present. When asked who was running the place, the individual in red gave a hesitant, overwhelmed look as they confessed to bearing that weight themselves. Their worried gaze swept over the medical bay, locking onto the injured figure as they softly uttered a familiar hero's name in surprised recognition. Around the patient, others immediately rallied, offering their help and promising to do their best despite the challenges as the lead caregiver accepted the urgent situation. Their gaze, already fixed with worry, widened in profound shock as the command to prepare the injured figure for surgery was given. A hand flew to their mouth, stifling a desperate no. No, 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 as overwhelming disbelief washed over them. Lying still with an oxygen mask over their face, the injured figure reflected that helping others had always felt natural. With a quiet weariness, they added that spending time with their Aunt May would surely make that clear. Lying still with an oxygen mask covering their face, they reflected on the struggle of accepting help or leaning on others when overwhelmed, acknowledging it was never their strong suit. A profound frustration emanated from their masked gaze, knowing they were helpless precisely when their city needed them most. Lying still with an oxygen mask over their face, the figure seemed to finally accept a profound truth. In this quiet moment of vulnerability, they silently acknowledged that it was indeed Spider-Man who needed saving, who needed help. As the profound truth finally settled within them, their gaze softened. The world around them gently blurred, then faded into an all-encompassing darkness. With a pensive expression, the figure sitting recounted the grave injuries the patient sustained, emphasizing the surprise at their miraculous survival. They observed the recovering figure, acknowledging their unique healing abilities before trailing off, uncertain about where the others had gone. With a heavy, distant gaze, they reflected on how prolonged fear had desensitized everyone, to the point where even witnessing a hero's near demise on an operating table no longer hit with the same shock. It was a strange truth, how quickly the truly terrible could transform into an accustomed normal, something one simply got used to. The injured hero, clutching their side, weakly acknowledged having stepped up in a crisis, their head bowed in weariness. The figure in the hoodie, eyes wide with sudden realization, gasped in relief that they were awake, while a third worried observer confessed their fear of losing them, prompting the hero to concede it hadn't been their best minute. With a subtle smile, the red-haired figure announced their departure, granting a moment of privacy. From the hospital bed, the masked hero offered earnest thanks, expressing comfort in knowing their companion had their back. The person in the red hoodie met their gaze, their thoughtful expression quietly acknowledging the profound trust. With a hint of wry amusement, the red-haired figure confided in the masked hero about someone presuming their dating status and calling them Spider-Man's girlfriend. The masked hero responded with a subtle tilt of their head, a silent, "imagine that" passing between them, before the other pressed on, wanting to know if the assumption had been corrected. A distressed "no" escaped the red-haired figure as the masked hero, despite clutching their side in obvious pain, asserted the urgent need to return to the fray. With a worried gaze, they accepted the gravity of the situation, but insisted there was something vital to reveal before any departure. Watching the frail figure in the hospital bed, the masked hero breathed out a pained whisper of a name. The red-haired figure, with a worried look towards the hero, conveyed the grim prognosis that the person in the bed was expected to pass at any moment. The masked figure stood with arms crossed, their thoughts burdened by the realization they had seen signs of the illness and denied its severity after witnessing the individual coughing. Turning to them with urgent eyes, the other expressed their profound fear should the vital anti-serum not be retrieved, to which the hero simply but firmly promised, "You will." Watching the peaceful, sleeping form, one figure whispered their deep fears, admitting they didn't know if they could win. The other responded with a stark honesty, suggesting perhaps they truly couldn't. With wide, serious eyes, one figure declared that traditional heroic tactics wouldn't suffice, suggesting instead that Peter's personal touch was required. The masked hero turned, their gaze widening slightly in surprise and confusion at the unexpected proposal. Looking up with a worried, open expression, they brought up a troubling memory, reminding the other that Peter had once helped build Doc Ock's dangerous arms. Their gaze seemed to implore the other to recall the weight of that shared history. The silhouetted figure spoke of their last, desperate hope, convinced that if anyone could find the enemy's crucial weakness, it was a specific individual. The masked hero's wide, focused eyes remained fixed, absorbing the gravity of this desperate strategy. As the hero prepared to leave, the figure in the doorway offered a familiar, steadfast encouragement for the daunting task ahead. Their own eyes, steady and focused, then held a quiet thought of satisfaction, convinced the hero was now prepared. From their hospital bed, the figure offered a knowing smile, remarking gently on the other's unique ability to prompt a reaction from the hero. With a slight lowering of their head, the listener responded with a soft, familiar protest, their gaze still fixed on the one resting. With a gentle, knowing smile, the figure in the bed shared their quiet understanding of the situation, revealing they had never been easily fooled. The other figure's eyes widened, a surprised question escaping their lips about how long this truth had been known. The figure on the right, with a knowing yet pained look, acknowledged the desire for a normal life, but confessed a parent's selfish yearning for their child's happiness. The other figure, eyes wide and mouth slightly agape, looked back, searching for the full meaning of those words. The shadowed figure's words hung in the air, a quiet assertion that someone had always thrived better in their companion's presence. With wide, slightly sorrowful eyes, the listener received the statement, a complex mix of surprise and understanding washing over their face. Within Octavius Labs, a figure gazed intently at the brilliant designs, murmuring about the impossible creation with a sense of wonder. Yet, a troubled look crossed their face, reflected in an outstretched hand, as they absorbed the implications of something brand new and undeniably profound. With a precise, unwavering hand, they meticulously guided the tool over the intricate lines, their gaze fixed on the extendable arm blueprint. After days of wrestling with what felt impossible, this final design was finally taking shape, marking a silent, determined triumph. With a troubled gaze fixed on the data pad in their hand, they grappled with the difficult decision to destroy what they had so carefully crafted. A deep sense of regret shadowed their features, knowing it was the only way. With an intense gaze, they began meticulously sketching intricate designs onto the transparent screen, their hands moving with determined purpose. This was their own answer, a unique creation born from their ingenuity, taking form before them. As the rain lashed down, one figure, with an accusatory gaze and demanding posture, insisted the other finally reveal the truth they had long hidden. The accused, standing amidst the storm, met the challenge with a weary acceptance, agreeing to finally speak it. With a raw scream, their face contorted in furious accusation, they hurled words about the other's inability to accept their own superiority. Their blazing gaze underscored the bitter truth that the other's value had always been solely tied to serving them. The furious accusation that they were, and always would be, a failure ignited a blinding rage in the figure with mechanical arms. With a contorted face and menacing lunge, they bellowed a vow to demonstrate true failure, sending the other plunging headlong into the stormy abyss below. A raw, horrified scream echoed through the downpour. Plummeting through the heavy rain, their eyes were wide with a sudden, dawning horror. An involuntary gasp escaped them as the world spun, hands reaching out in a desperate, futile attempt to grasp something solid. Floating amidst the destruction, one figure issued a stern, lamenting warning about unheeded advice, their outstretched arms conveying a weary finality. Below, the other's wide eyes, filled with dawning horror, struggled to comprehend this startling new presence. A stern figure, floating amidst the chaos, admonished their target for not listening and expressed profound disappointment. The armored figure, their visible eye wide with shock and dawning horror, could only manage a disbelieving question, wondering if the other had known everything all along. With a detached smile, one figure tried to appeal to a forgotten past, reminding the other of their care for helping people. A weary sigh, "Oh, Parker," was the only response before the first figure, still smiling, declared their unwavering intent to save lives. The elder figure smiled with a chilling conviction, asserting that true world-changing power lay in making the hardest decisions. But the other, eyes glowing with agony, grimaced through their mask as a sharp pain pierced them, crying out that such a choice was impossible. Amidst the driving rain, the figure's glowing eyes narrowed with raw determination, their body tensing with intense strain. A sharp K-Ren-K sound punctuated their defiant resolve to agree to the challenge, demanding even more power to succeed. Amidst the driving rain, the armored figure's hand crackled with power, their glowing gaze unwavering as they grimly resolved to take away the other's precious arms to save the city. The second figure recoiled, hands raised in a desperate plea to stop, but the armored one's conviction was absolute, accepting the harsh necessity. With eyes wide in a mix of grief and accusation, they spoke of a perceived betrayal, lamenting how someone they had worshipped had seemingly thrown away everything they admired. Meanwhile, the accused figure, entangled by cruel appendages, could only utter a desperate, protesting cry. With a terrified gaze, the figure on the ground desperately pleaded not to be abandoned, fearing a fate that would leave them trapped and helpless, as the armored figure looked on grimly. Acknowledging their own clouded judgment, the armored one offered to fix things and ensure the best help, prompting a heart-wrenching, desperate cry to echo in the rain. With a terrifying grimace, hanging upside down, they pleaded against being confined, convinced they would be trapped in a useless form. The desperate thought brought a panicked shout, certain that if they were taken away, their very arms would be stripped from them. The terrified figure on the ground desperately pleaded not to be abandoned, even attempting to bargain by offering to keep a vital secret safe. With a pained, resolved gaze, the other figure responded, acknowledging the pleas, but deferring the final decision to document. The figure in the bed calmly outlined the grim timeline for anti-serum replication, while the masked individual, clutching a single vial, urgently questioned if saving a patient now was possible. With a steady gaze, the person in the bed explained that such a choice would leave no hope for others, a brutal reality that weighed heavily on the masked figure, reminding them that some sacrifices hurt like hell. A soft, pained groan escaped the figure in the bed, signaling their intense discomfort. The masked figure stood still, their focus on the suffering individual, as another quietly announced their intent to wait just outside the room. With a frail yet determined look, the figure in the bed fixed their gaze on the masked visitor, urgently asking them to remove their disguise and calling out their name. Their eyes held a poignant longing, expressing a heartfelt desire to truly see their nephew. With a gentle, proud smile, the figure in the bed looked upon the masked visitor, admitting that while they had worried, they were always so incredibly proud of them and all the people they had saved. The visitor, head bowed and eyes clouded with sorrow, softly murmured their regret at ever causing such concern. A desperate uncertainty clouded their gaze as they confessed, with lips slightly parted, that they were utterly lost and didn't know what to do. Their hand gripped a piece of fabric tightly, reflecting the overwhelming weight of their plea to Aunt May. Despite their gentle gaze, the figure in the bed softly denied something, a subtle resignation on their face. Yet, the hand holding the glowing device asserted with certainty that they did, leaving no room for argument. Their gaze, heavy with sorrow, dropped as they articulated a painful refusal, conveying a deep inability to comply with something. The small tool held close seemed to echo their profound regret. Their eyes squeezed shut, face contorted in a sharp grimace, a guttural "gah" burst from them. The cry was a raw, aching response to the painful refusal they had just witnessed. Their hand, still trembling from the painful refusal, settled on the antiserum with a soft tink. Their gaze drifted to the framed image nearby, a quiet voice inside whispering that a mere spider bite couldn't truly make a hero. Slumped by the hospital bed, the weary figure in the suit gently rested their head, a quiet vigil over the sleeping form. Amidst the stillness, thoughts turned to the enduring presence of great role models and parents who care, a silent hope perhaps, after a difficult choice. The quiet vigil was abruptly shattered as the heart monitor's steady rhythm faltered, giving way to an urgent, escalating series of beeps. A chilling, sustained beep then pierced the air, drawing their terrified gaze to the suddenly flatlining display. Their gaze slowly swept over the familiar gravestones of Ben and May, each name a profound echo in the quiet stillness. A weary thought, heavy with resignation, acknowledged the painful truth: they do it all the time. A profound silence of grief hung over them as their heads bowed low, eyes cast down in sorrow. One figure sought solace in the gentle touch of a companion, their shoulders heavy with shared despair. Even the one offering comfort wore a deeply pained expression, reflecting the quiet anguish that enveloped them all. 3 weeks later, amidst moving boxes, one playfully asked where to deposit a geek pile, while another, carrying a table, responded that interior design could wait as they were still figuring out the floor plan. A soft pft and an amused glance were shared between them, hinting at the playful chaos to come. With knowing smiles, the first then playfully predicted the items would soon be strewn across the entire apartment, which was met with a gentle, conceding affirmation. With a bright smile, one wished the other a happy moving day as they hurried off to work, playfully citing overdue lunches. Watching them depart, the other, with a gentle gaze and a slight smile, inquired about connecting later, receiving a confident promise in return. One individual turned from the doorway, a hint of urgency in their voice, as they confided in Pete about a secret, something too personal to tell their mother. Pete met their gaze, their neutral expression deepening to concern as the other hesitated, then revealed unsettling physical changes. With a hesitant gaze, one individual began a clearly uncomfortable conversation about the natural changes that come with age, hand moving to their head as if in self-reprimand. The other, eyes wide in horrified denial, immediately threw up their hands, firmly shutting down the topic with a clear rejection of where the discussion was headed. With a gaze holding a mix of discomfort and firm resolve, one individual indicated it was perhaps best to simply show what they meant, rather than explain further. The other's eyes widened in surprise, a silent what hanging in the air as they waited. The individual, seemingly suspended in an unnatural position, remarked on the undeniable strangeness of it all. Facing them, their companion stared with wide, shocked eyes and slightly raised arms, clearly taken aback by the bizarre turn of events.